Hello and welcome to People Making Money. I'm your host, Kevin Bemmel, and we're here every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And we talk about all things related to professional success, building a business, and building wealth. So today, I want to talk about an article that was in the weekend edition of the Wall Street Journal. I'm going to share my screen here for a second because I have the article. Here it is. And here we go. Well, it's churning. And there we go. Okay. So, oh, that's funny. It switched to oh my, it's not showing the, hold on one second here. I'm gonna close this out so you're not looking at the wrong. So the Wall Street Journal over the weekend printed an article about how networking is back in job hunting. And I thought that was frankly, a pretty, here we go. Here's the article. Okay. Okay, so let's go back and share the screen. Okay, so here we go. So landing a job is all about who you know again. and the headline, networking is making a comeback as employers drown in computer generated job applications. So I'm just going to go over some of the facts or some of the things they mentioned in the article. You can see this, I guess it was originally posted online May 30th, but I read it over the weekend. So 983 people applied online for a job posted recently by tech recruiter Rob Tanzi. The candidate who got the offer wasn't one of them. Okay. Now, and look, this is how journalism is. So I'm not getting into the whole thing about fake news and all that kind of stuff. That's not the point here. The point is that this article is making something that has been the case for decades. It's acting like, oh, and now they're all of a sudden again this new thing is coming up. So look here, here's another fact. Okay, so for roles that were posted on greenhouse job boards and filled in the first quarter of this year, applicants with referrals had a 50% chance of advancing past an initial resume review, compared with 12% odds for other external candidates. Okay, and by the way, notice they don't print the figures here for internal candidates. Okay, I think farther in here, I don't remember exactly where it is. They mention that a lot of employers now are just not even posting jobs on job boards anymore, because they're finding that they're so overwhelmed by applications that they just can't get through them all, and the quality of the applications of the applicants they get through the online process is, generally speaking, so disrelated to the job they're looking to fill that it doesn't justify the time it would take to go through all of them. So, this is not a new phenomenon. That's number one. Ever has it been thus? Okay, the all companies will give preference to an internal referral. By the way, even the government agency will do that. And they're mandated by law not to do that, but they find ways around it. And it's for good reason. Um, the fact of the matter is, if someone who is already working in the workplace refers someone in, there's a presumption that is probably true that the person being referred in is more likely to get along with the current employees than someone brand new with no connection to anyone there, because they're not already part of the social fabric of that organization. Okay, number one. Number two, there is a presumption. Now, this presumption may not be true, that when someone is referred in, what is known about that person is more reliable because there's someone there to vouch for them. Now, look, friends lie for each other, so it may not actually be the case, but the presumption is there, and the presumption has to be rebutted, meaning it's assumed that the person's qualifications are valid, and that has to be disproved, rather than the situation where someone's coming in, nobody knows anything about the person, and therefore what has to be proved is that indeed they are qualified. So this is why historically someone who's referred in or who has an internal contact had the inside line, right? Hence the name, to getting that particular position. Like I said, it just makes sense. And if you've benefited by it, you've seen that. And if you have not benefited by it, you know how aggravating it can be, especially if you are indeed a well-qualified candidate. It's like, wait, why does this other person who is maybe as qualified as me, but why do they get, in essence, special treatment? Because they know someone on the inside. That's unfair. It's nepotism. It's this. It's that. It may be all of those things, but that is how human beings are, and that's how companies are. So what's going on here? Well, if we go back to the pre-internet days, when a company had a job opening, typically they filled it in one of a few ways. One was by letting people in the company know that the position was open and looking for referrals. That's always been the case. Another is by putting ads in the local newspapers, in the want ads, which I don't even think they exist anymore, right? But they put it in the want ads, and the applicant pool was pretty much limited to people in the area where the organization was located. Okay. A third way was they would hire what used to be called a headhunting firm, a recruiting firm. Now, that was usually in cases where they were looking for an executive, a more senior person of some sort. And in that case, the headhunters would they would look however broadly geographically it was necessary to find candidates for the role. And when I say however broadly nationally that was required, meaning that, if it was, for example, a president of a company, they might look throughout the United States for candidates, especially if it was a very large company. Whereas if it was a, vice president of operations, they're probably not going to, of a small company, they wouldn't necessarily look nationally, but they might look, within the state or regionally, depending on, how the company viewed, or how willing the company was to have someone come in who was relocating perhaps from out of state or out of the area, and how much financial support they were going to give for that purpose, right? So, are you going to pay for yourself to move cross country to take on the vice president of operations role at a small company with the attendant risk that if it doesn't work out, now you've forked out a lot of money to relocate, and now you're in a new location where you're not you may not be established, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So in order to take that risk, you would typically want to negotiate some kind of relocation allowance, and yet if you're the company, do you want to pay relocation money to a new employee and risk that the person isn't going to work out, right? So those were sort of the competing issues that had to be decided in those kind of cases. And then along comes the internet, and with it came job boards. And I think originally companies felt like, wow, this is a great thing because now we can post a notice on the internet and people, all over the place can access, our jobs, or our job openings, I should say. And this will get us, better candidates more quickly. And that means we'll have a more talented workforce. And wow, isn't this fantastic? And maybe in the very beginning it did work that way, but very quickly, what companies came to realize was that the internet allowed people to just deluge them with applications. And in fact, back when I was doing was actively coaching military people who were transitioning to civilian life, I met one fellow who told me that every day during the week, during the weekdays, he would fill out 100 job applications. Okay, so 500 a week. He would just go on job boards and just bang out these job applications. And I said, well, how long have you been doing that? And he said, well, for about 9 months. And I said, and how many interviews have you gotten? He said, well, I got a handful. I said, have you gotten a job? He said, no. Now, the reality was just, slamming companies with your job application is meaningless, especially if you're not looking at what the qualifications are, how well you meet those qualifications, and being very individualized in how you approach each company. And even then, okay, as you saw in the statistics from this Wall Street Journal article, only a very small percentage of those job board or online applicants actually passed to the next phase. So the statistics that are quoted in the Wall Street Journal article, I don't know where they got those statistics. But what I can tell you is that in terms of the percentage of people who get jobs because they know someone on the inside is extraordinarily high. And the overwhelming majority of jobs are filled by people who know someone on the inside, and in fact may not have even applied online, or if they did, they applied online because it was part of the process, but they already knew before they applied online that they were being considered seriously for the job, and the online job applicant was really just a way of getting their basic information into the system. They were going to be pulled. They weren't even going to go through the automated resume screeners that a lot of companies use in order to weed out the hundreds and hundreds of applicants they get, and find the small number that are actually going to get some kind of live meeting to discuss the job. So you'll find that throughout these kind of discussions, I don't use the word interview. And for those of you who have seen me talk about this issue before, I'm just going to digress on this subject for a minute so you understand where I'm coming from. When you're going to talk to someone about taking a role in a company, that is a meeting of two equals, essentially, both of whom need to be asking relevant questions about whether this is the right situation. An interview implies that you're going there as kind of a beggar, right? And you're going to stand a grilling with the hope that you give the right answers and you will get chosen for the job. Now, if you've been struggling to find a job, I can understand why you feel that way. I certainly can. What I would suggest is, if that's how you feel going into an interview, you are putting yourself at a disadvantage, because skilled uh, um, uh, uh, skilled managers can tell when someone is exhibiting self-confidence and when they're not. And if someone is not exhibiting self-confidence, a lot of times they will not pass on. I mean, they will pass on that candidate, and they won't seriously consider that person for the role that is open. So, hiring managers, while they, when you're the hiring manager for a particular job, you're typically not an HR person. Okay, so you're looking for someone who's compatible to your team, and someone who comes in kind of hat in hand with this attitude. I'm hoping to get a job, even if you don't pick up on it consciously. Unconsciously, I think it causes people to wonder, what's up with this person? Why are they so nervous? Why are they so retiring? Why are they so exhibiting a sense of inferiority? And so, how is that going to work in terms of contributing to the success of my department? Whereas if you go in with an attitude of, I'm going to learn about this role, about the people I'll be working with, about the organization, to see if it's the right place for me. Okay. And, do so, of course, respectfully, but forthrightly. So then that person is demonstrating, first of all, some self-esteem, second of all, some leadership, and third, a sincere interest in more than just getting the job. They're exhibiting that they have concern for their fitness for the role, which is, of course, what the company's concern is. So now your interests are aligned, right? If I go into an interview and my interest is in getting the job, okay, that is not the company's interest. The company's interest is in finding someone, presumably the best person for that job. Okay. So if I go in intent on understanding what is this really going to entail, and how might this work with respect to my knowledge, skills, and experience, okay, so now I'm aligning myself with the company's interests. And that's what companies want to see. They want to see a team player, right? So, by the way, it's perfectly valid to go to a meeting to discuss a job, talk about it, and at the end of the meeting, say to the hiring manager, you know what, having learned more about the position, more about the company, etc., I really believe that this is not the right opportunity for me. I thank you for your time. And if you have something, along these other lines, that might be, a position that would be right for me. But this one doesn't seem right for me. Now, does that happen a lot? Well, it depends. I mean, In higher level positions with people who are confident, yeah, they will turn down positions for sure. They will. Um, and by the way, sometimes when they turn down a position, it makes the company want them more because, like, wow, this person is confident enough to turn down our position. So, what do they know that that we want, that kind of thing. But I'm not saying to turn it down as a ploy to get the job. But what I am saying is, it should be in the back of your mind that if the job is not, if it turns out that this opportunity is not right for you, it's not the right fit, that you have every reason to turn it down, or even if you're not offered it, to just say, this isn't, this is, I know you haven't offered me the position, but based on what we've discussed, this is not the right situation for me. So that's why I call it a meeting to discuss a job, because that's what it should be. And one of the things I most strongly recommend is you think about, the application process, the screening process is all about getting into a meeting with the hiring manager to discuss the job. Okay. Now, you want to do that, as I put in the marketing for this episode. You want to do that from the inside. Okay. Now, how do you do it from the inside? Well, here's the interesting thing, and I'm gonna talk about the military for just a minute to show you how kind of almost perverse job acquisition training is. So all the branches of the military have something called a transition assistance program. That's what we call it in the Navy anyway. The other branches, I think, it has a different name. Now, I've been through it. I went through it twice, in 2012 and 2018. It's a 4 or 5 day program, and in both cases, during that week-long program, we spent perhaps 30 minutes talking about how to network to get a job. 30 minutes. We spent an entire day talking about writing a resume. Okay. And I would argue this is one of the reasons why many military people struggle to find a job, because they're being told that the quality of their resume, at least in terms of hours spent talking about the subject, is 16 times more important than networking, right? 8 hours, 8 hours of classroom. Maybe it's 7 hours when you take breaks or whatever. Okay, so 7 hours talking about writing a resume versus 30 minutes talking about networking. Okay, so 14 times, we'll say. Okay, that is the absolute opposite of reality. Networking is 10, 20, 50, 100 times more important than what's in your resume. Okay. Solid relationships can overcome a mediocre resume. A fantastic resume, the most perfect resume in the world, cannot overcome mediocre networking skills. It cannot. Okay, that's just the bottom line. Anyone who tells you differently is probably trying to sell resume writing services. I mean, without slamming, resume writers, but that's, I say that, somewhat tongue in cheek. So how do you do it? Well, you do it the way you look for friends. That's the best way I can put it, right? You look for people in the industry that you want to be a part of, and you make friends with them. Now, how do you make friends with people? Well, the cardinal rule is you make friends with people by helping people out. Okay, and you say that's awfully simplistic. Yeah, it is, but it happens to be true. Okay. Do you have someone who thinks they're your friend and all they ever do is ask you for help, or ask you for money, or ask you for this, or ask you for that? Do you really consider that person your friend? Probably not. You probably consider that person to be kind of a leech. Okay. That's not a basis for a relationship. Now, among our long-standing friends, we probably go through periods when a particular person is, much more in need of help than we are. And so our responsibility as a friend is to give them that help. Okay. However, on par, good friendships come from a mutuality of interest, both interests in the sense of things we like to do, but also a mutuality of interest in I help you, you help me. There's a kind of balance there over time. On the short term, there probably isn't balance. Okay, and the striving for balance in the short term is going to be destructive to creating a relationship, because it becomes too transactional. Well, you helped me last week, so now this week it's my turn to be helped. No, that's not a relationship. That's a business transaction. But over time, friends helping each other out, it tends to balance out. So, like I said, you go through periods where one friend is in greater need of help than the other, and then maybe think neither one is in particular need of help, and then sometime down the road the other person is going through a tough time in their life and they're in need of help. That's how a relationship works, and that's what you want to do in creating opportunity for yourself professionally. Okay, so how do you do that? Well, you look for places where you can meet people who are already in the profession or industry of which you want to be a part. Okay, so we'll take cybersecurity. That's a popular job these days. Okay, it's sort of a sub tech in general is pretty popular. That was the example they used in the Wall Street Journal article, right? Almost 1,000 online applications for a tech job, right? So let's take cybersecurity specifically. So how are you going to, in essence, make friends with people in the cybersecurity business? Well, okay, I'm gonna hang on one second. I'm gonna show you exactly what I would do. So I'm gonna stop share, and I'm gonna just go share. Oh, here it is, new tab. Okay, I'm just going to share a tab. Okay, so if I were looking for to get a job in cybersecurity, the first thing I would do is I would search cyber security. Oops, security. Learn to spell. Professional associations. Okay, I spelled that wrong. There you go. Okay. And I usually skip the sponsored results, and here you go. Cyber Magazine, top 10 cybersecurity associations. There you go. Okay, so I'd go to this article, and here you go. National Security of ISICs, whatever ISICs, Information and Security, whatever that stands for. Let's see if I can find what ISICs are. I don't know. Okay. The cybersecurity scheme. This is based in the UK. Okay. The Cyber Threat Alliance is a group of cybersecurity practitioners from organizations that have chosen to cooperate. Okay. National Cybersecurity Alliance. Here's another one, non-profit organization. I think these must all be UK based on, let's see, Cyber Magazine. I'm guessing this is a UK based publication by the way they spell organization. But in any way, cybersecurity, working to create more secure and interconnected world. Okay. Women in cybersecurity. There you go. Information Security Forum, Cloud Security Alliance, CSA, Center for Internet Security. This has got to be a UK thing, right? Because they're spelling center TRE instead of TER. Okay, International Association of Privacy Professionals and the SANS Institute. Okay, offering programs to more than 165,000 security professionals. SANS Institute is one of the most trusted and largest sources for information and cybersecurity training certification worldwide. Okay, launched in 1989, so it's been around for 35 years. Okay, so that's one list. Here, let's list of cybersecurity. Okay, that one was older. That was from August of last year. This is from February of this year. Here's another list. Okay, it takes me. Okay, here we go. Cybersecurity associations. Okay, here you go. The Association for Executives in Healthcare Information Security, the Australian Information Security Association. Okay, here's CSA again, Cloud Security Alliance. ISAC, Automotive Information Sharing and Analysis Center. Okay, that's what ISAC stands for. Okay, APWG, the Anti-Phishing Working Group. Okay, and then there's a short write-up on each of these, right? And there, look, this is a great list. Look how many of them there are. Let's go farther down. Here, Cyber Ireland. Here, New Jersey Cybersecurity and Communications Integration Cell, South Carolina Cyber Association, Cyber Wyoming Alliance. Here's, state by state. Here's one for Georgia. Here's Law Enforcement Cyber Center. Okay, so you can see that there's large organizations that cover international, there's national organizations. Here's Maritime Security Council. Okay, that covers a particular industry in terms of cybersecurity. And then there's ones that are, geographically, either by state. Here's Silicon Valley Cybersecurity Institute. Okay, here's Water Information Sharing and Analysis Center. Wow, so you can look for an organization or two that is in your area, or that in your area geographically, or here's Cyber Florida at the University of South Florida. Here's Canadian. So look for one that's in your geographic area, or one that's in your area of interest. Okay, here, look, there's two in Texas, you notice. Okay, here's Louisiana. So when I say in your area of interest, the Maritime Security Resilience Alliance. So maybe you're interested in maritime security. Okay, the Institute of Internal Auditors. Maybe your interest is in auditing. Okay, here's National Defense, oil and gas. So whatever your interest is, find an organization or maybe two. Okay, you don't want to join all of them because you don't have enough time to work all of them. But find an organization or two that aligns with the industry or the profession of which you want to be a part, and join it and get involved. Okay, find out when the meetings are, find out when the trainings are. A lot of the stuff is online these days, and you can go and take part in these online trainings or online meetings. You can meet other people. And when you're in the trainings, okay, take note of people in the trainings that you think it would be interesting to connect with. Okay, I'm going to go back over here. Okay, and here, I'm going to close this out. So I'll give you an example. As many of you know, I'm a professional fiduciary. So there's an organization here in the Southern California area called the Southern California Institute, and they do trainings on a regular basis related to estate planning, estate and trust administration, and other associated topics. In particular, they have a training called Thursday Insights, and it happens 3 out of 4 Thursdays a month, basically, in the afternoons. Okay. Now I haven't been for a while because I've been too busy, but I got involved with that, and I routinely went to those meetings. Now they were done virtually, so I didn't have to leave my office to go, and it made it really easy. Here's the thing. The meetings generally there was anywhere from about 15 to 30 people there. Now you might say, well, that's not a lot of people. Can't do any good networking there because the more people, the better. I disagree. Smaller groups, I think, are more effective for networking because you have an opportunity to not only get to know people better because there's fewer, you also have an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself, or not share about yourself necessarily, but show people who you are. Okay. And so one of the things I made it a point of doing in these trainings is always coming up with a relevant question for whoever was conducting the training that, number one, would help them better make their point or show their expertise. Okay. Now I know it's fun when someone's presenting to try and stump them. Okay. And in certain circumstances, like if the person is really obnoxious, I don't know, maybe you want to do that, and by doing that you kind of get everybody else going, oh, I'm so glad you did it because I didn't have the guts to do it, but this person is really a jerk, kind of thing. But that's a risky strategy. Better is to help the person make their presentation more effective. Now, why do that? Number one, it shows you're engaged with what's going on. Okay. And that's important because who wants to meet someone who's sitting there wasting their time, not engaged in what's going on? Why would you waste your time wanting to meet someone like that? So, number one, you show you're engaged. Number two, you show that you're interested in learning, which means it's funny how people interpret this. Someone who's interested in learning, most people assume that person knows stuff and they're building on their knowledge. Okay. So if you're able to ask a pertinent question, that puts you closer to the presenter in terms of your level of knowledge. Okay? So you want to come up with that question. And better yet is to ask a question that allows you to dialogue a little bit with the presenter. And if you have a really good presenter, they'll perceive what you're doing. And since you're helping them out, they will turn around and help you out by actively engaging you in a brief conversation about your question, right? So good present. So here's an example coming up. A close friend of mine, my friend Bill Gross, tomorrow is going to be the presenter at the Southern California Institute Thursday Insight meeting, and I'm going to go. Now, I already have a relationship with Bill for decades, but one of the things I'm going to seek to do, as I always do in these presentations, is ask a question that makes Bill look better. Okay. Now, what he's probably going to do is respond by saying something along the lines of, hey, Kevin, great question. Blah, 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 blah. Am I answering your question? And then I can go, yes. How about this other aspect? And we can have a short dialogue. Okay. So that's the kind of thing you want to create when you're in one of these professional association trainings or meetings. Okay. That's the important thing to do. All right. Now, having done that in the meeting, you want to jot down, first of all, you want to jot down the presenter's name. If somebody is presenting, that probably means they have a higher than typical amount of knowledge and experience in the industry. So that's someone you want to create a relationship with. Okay, so take their name down, and then after the training is over, and it doesn't have to be immediately after, but I would say within 24 hours, go to LinkedIn, look the person up, and connect with the person on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn allows you to write a brief note. So say in the note where you connected with them, i.e., I'm already connected to Bill, but hi, Bill. Great training yesterday at the SCI, the Southern California Institute. Thought it would be good to connect and build a relationship. Okay. And you only have like 300 characters or whatever it is when you're trying to connect with someone. So the message has got to be short, but just remind them where you met them, because they won't necessarily remember your name. Okay. And connect with them. Now you've got that initial connection. But it's based on something, and so they're very likely to go, yeah, okay, I'll connect with Kevin, bang, and there you go. Okay, so that's one way to build connections in that meeting. The second, typically the meetings will allow you to post comments. Okay, and if they're using a platform like Zoom, you can post comments to individuals. You don't have to post to the entire group. So if someone else asks a question, again, that's someone that you want to connect with, okay? Because they're demonstrating interest, more than typical interest in the subject, number one. And number two, think about the dynamics of learning. Most people are afraid of asking questions because they're afraid of looking foolish or like they don't really know. The reality is it's the opposite. People who ask questions typically are the ones who know more and want to know even more. They're the top people. Okay. So if someone is in a training and they ask a question, that's also someone you want to meet. So if someone asks a question, and now, by the way, if someone asks a dumb question, okay, so then, maybe that isn't someone you want to connect with. But if someone asks a good question, okay, then post in the chat, hey, Greg, great question. Thanks for asking it. Okay, and take down Greg's name. Okay, then again, after the meeting, within 24 hours preferably, go to LinkedIn, look up Greg, and connect with him. Hey, Greg, great meeting you in the meeting, the SCI meeting yesterday. Thought it would be good to connect here. Okay, and now you've made a new connection. Okay, so that's the first step, is making that initial connection. Now, the nice thing about being in a professional organization and going to a training or going to a meeting is you have a natural reason to periodically reconnect with the people you meet there. Okay, and what is that natural connection? It's when there's another training coming up or another meeting coming up, to reach out to people that you've met in the organization and just say to them, hey, I saw there's a training coming up on the following topic. Are you planning on being there? Or what do you think about this topic? Or what do you know about the presenter? So you have a natural way to interact with people based on nothing. The organization is doing 90% of the work. All you have to do is just reach out periodically with a question. Okay. Now, you want these interactions to benefit the other person. How do we benefit the other person? Well, one way is by asking their opinion. That's why a great question is, what do you know about the presenter? Or have you ever heard the presenter present before? Now, by the way, it's always better to ask an open-ended question than it is a yes/no question. So, have you seen the presenter present before? You can get a one-word answer, yes, no. So while that's okay, the better question is, what do you know about the presenter? Okay, or what information about the presenter's background do you have, or something like that? Or Conversely, if you reach out to the person and say, and ask them, hey, are you going to the meeting where such and such is going to present? And maybe the person says, I'm not really sure. And so then what I would do in that case is I'd go look up the presenter's background and just get a hyperlink to it. And I'd say to the person, well, hey, yeah, I was unsure too, so I looked up the presenter's background. Here's a link to it. Maybe this will help you decide. And now you're helping the person because you've taken 2 minutes to provide them with some information. Okay, that will help. Now, by the way, of course, they could be saying they don't know because they're not going to go, but they don't want to say no or whatever. Fine, whatever. Look, respond based on them giving you a legitimate response. Okay, now that and again, that's the key in your interactions with these people. You want to give them at least a small bit of value so that they see that following up with you is a worthwhile thing to do. Okay, now I will also say, in addition to following people or connecting with people on LinkedIn, the other place that I'll look for them sometimes is Instagram. Okay, I frankly do not find Facebook to be a good professional networking social media place. I don't know. It doesn't work for me, and I found it's become increasingly more difficult to use. I've even considered just dropping off of Facebook completely. I also don't find X to be a good platform for professional connecting. For whatever reason, it's just not my venue. But the other place I will connect with people professionally is on Instagram. And in fact, I have a Way to Wow Show Instagram, membership or page, whatever you call it. And that's typically where I make professional connections, right? And what I find is, so for example, my friend Vaughn Marie Thomas, so she regularly posts on Instagram about matters related to bookkeeping and accounting and how to handle that and tips on how you can do that more efficiently, that kind of thing. And my friend Jennifer Belmont also posts on Instagram, and she gives. She sometimes she posts about kind of just fun things that are going on in her life, but other times she posts about professional things as well. And by the way, it's nice once in a while to put in a personal thing because that helps build a relationship, which I think is why Jennifer does that. So you get a little sense of her personality, right? So another thing to do is to connect with people. Like I said, I recommend Instagram. I think at least right now, LinkedIn and Instagram are the two best social media sites for professional networking. And so I follow my friend Sarah Dembski on Instagram. Sarah is a real estate agent, and she will oftentimes post something and ask a question. So one time she posted several pictures of swimming pools, and I think it was swimming pools. And she said, which one do you like the best? So when she does that, I try and make it a point to respond, right? Because that's helping her out. And look, we've known each other for a long time. I want to help her out. It's also fun. I mean, it's a fun thing to do. But so again, it's like a tiny thing, takes you literally a minute. Okay, but do those kind of things because they help build relationships. And that's all you're doing. You say, well, how am I going to get a job out of this? Well, the way you're going to get a job out of it is as you build these relationships, okay, and you get to know people, now you'll have an opportunity to ask them for help. Okay, if you ask them for help right off the bat, okay, you come off like there's a Yiddish word. It's called a schnorrer. It's like someone who's always after something for himself and at the expense of other people. And that's, even if people don't think that about you consciously, subconsciously, that's kind of how they respond. Okay, so you want to build the relationship first. Okay. So that then down, after a while, after, several months of doing small things periodically to help them out, and as you're going through your other job hunting routines, okay, so maybe you come across a position at XYZ Cybersecurity Inc. Okay, and you see that there's a job there posted on the job board, and you think you're an ideal candidate for that job. Okay. And it just so happens that by being involved in the Cybersecurity Professional Association, you've established a relationship with someone who works at XYZ Cybersecurity Inc. So contact that person. And now, don't say, I saw there was a job opening. Can you get me an interview? No. Okay. That's too big an ask usually the first time out. But you can say, hey, I saw that your company has the following position open. What can you tell me about the job? Okay. Now, that's a subtle way of saying I'm interested in the job, right? But it's not putting them under any obligation other than to just share with you some information as that's kind of from the inside. But that's where you want to get, is into the inside. Okay. So, hopefully you've built a relationship to the point where the person will say, oh yeah, I heard about that job. Actually, frankly, they already have a candidate for it. Someone is on the inside is going to be getting the job. They put it on the job board just because it's company policy, but it's frankly not a real opportunity. Okay, well, there you go. So there's no sense getting all excited about this perfect job because there's somebody on the inside. Okay. However, even if they say that, your response can be, hey, thanks for letting me know, saves me a lot of time. If another job, another opening like that happens to come up and you happen to think of it, maybe you'd let me know. And there you go. And now you're building that inside track. Do you see how that works? Okay. Now, by the way, they might get back to you and say, "Oh yeah, I don't really know anything about that job. I may have heard something about it." So if that's their response, then you can say, "Oh well, would you be able to refer me to someone else in the company that could tell me about it?" Okay, that may now that's a little heavier lift, right, than just sharing some information themselves. And they may come back to you and say, no, I don't know who the hiring manager is or whatever. Okay, hey, thanks. I appreciate you considering it, and just keep moving on. Okay. Now, by the way, I wouldn't get all mad that the person wouldn't refer you. They may feel that they don't know you well enough to do that. I mean, people know how these things work. The idea of being something less than direct is you give people an opportunity to handle things in a way that maintains the relationship, but also lets them handle things in a way that they're comfortable. Okay. So, generally speaking, close friends, we don't have a problem with making them uncomfortable because they understand. But for a newer relationship, we don't want to make people feel uncomfortable because that can blow the relationship. So in the beginning, especially, we want to ask things in a way that things remain comfortable while still letting us and allowing us to continue to build the relationship. So again, if the person says, no, I don't know anything about it, oh, can you refer me to someone? I'm not really sure who it is, and sorry about that, kind of thing. It's like, and now always make sure, even if you get a no, to thank them. Hey, thanks, thanks for thinking about it. No problem. See you at the next, Cybersecurity Association meeting. So always end it on a communication on an up note, making it clear that you intend to maintain the relationship, even though you might not have gotten the kind of help that you wanted. Now, obviously, you don't want to say, thanks for nothing, I'll see you at the next meeting. Obviously not. But make sure the person understands that, you look, they must have taken at least 10 seconds to consider, do I want to refer this person, to someone in the company? No. Okay. Well, at least they considered it. Right. So there's nothing, you're not lying to say, if you say, hey, thanks for, thinking about it. And, looking forward to seeing you at the next meeting. Okay. Now, by the way, they might say, oh yeah, my buddy, Sue is the hiring manager. I'm happy to introduce you to Sue. Bang. That's the mother lode, because that's what you want. You want an introduction to the hiring manager from someone in the company. Now, obviously, the best introduction is from a friend of Sue's. Okay. But even if it's not from a friend of Sue, but someone that Sue knows, okay, that may be all it takes for you to get the inside track, which is what you're looking to do. Okay. So we're getting toward the end of the show here. So I want to summarize. Number one, there is no quick way to get the inside track if you don't already have a relationship established in a company. It takes time, because you have to have those relationships, and relationships that you can rely on take time to build. They're not built, generally speaking, in a week or a month. Usually they're built at least over several months. Okay. So I'll give you a quick example. I met a fellow by the name of Roy Gia. He's an accountant specializing in trusts and estates. Roy and I first met the end of last year, and we kept in touch. He was a guest on my show, Trust and Estates Weekly, a while back. And, yesterday I was able to refer him some business. Okay. So it took 5.5, 6 months, something like that. Okay. Now, I think it's reasonable to say that, both Roy and I, we kind of hit it off from the start. We had aligned interests, and we both are of a mindset to, make referrals and help, be resources to each other, that kind of thing. Okay. So with some people, it'll happen faster than others. With other people, it may take a year to build that kind of relationship, or 9 months, or 2 years. Okay. And as you go through this, one of the things you need to assess is, look, we can only maintain so many relationships, even in a professional setting. So which ones are we going to maintain? But we need to create those relationships, and that takes time. Okay. So if you are thinking about job hunting, or if you're thinking about changing careers, okay, the best time to start creating the relationships that are necessary to do that, to get the inside track, is about a year ago. Okay. The next best time is now, because although, you may not have the relationships you need for 6 to 12 months from now, at least 6 to 12 months from now, you will have them. Now, that may mean that you've got to stay in your current position for 6 months until you've developed those relationships to the point where you'll be able to, reap the benefit of them. Okay. And if you don't have a job and you're looking for one, obviously exercising that kind of patience can be difficult. Okay. So maybe the answer is to get some kind of position where you can at least, support yourself or support you and your family, even if it's something temporary and that you don't like very much, but at least, you got some money coming in while you work on building the relationships that you need within the profession or industry in which you want to go, so that you can get the position that you want. But just recognize it takes time. It also takes lots of small interactions. Okay. Now, it can be the case that you have an hour-long meeting with someone and immediately establish a solid relationship. That's true. That was true for someone I was referred to. Again, this was, I think, toward the end of last year, my friend Josh, who also is in trust administration. when we met and we kind of exchanged information about each other, he said, "Hey, if I come down to LA later this week, would you be interested in meeting for coffee?" And I'm like, anyone who wants to take an hour-long drive to meet me, I want to meet that person. We hit it off. We ended up talking for about an hour and a half, or maybe it was even 2 hours. And we've had a great mutually supportive relationship since then. Okay. That's relatively unusual. Usually relationships are built a number of small interactions over time, because most people just they don't have the time to sit for 2 hours with in essence a stranger, when there's no immediate benefit to them. So plan this out, plan the amount of time that it's going to take, do your homework. Okay. And by if you haven't started doing this already, start today. Literally start today. Don't put it off. Okay. Because then at least, 6 months from now, you will have built the foundation of a professional network that you need. Okay. So again, the best time to start this would have been a year ago. The next best time is right now. And I literally mean right now, because the show's going to end in a moment. When this show ends, start. Okay. Don't delay. The problem with networking is there's always something better to do than networking for most of us. This includes me. Okay. And here I am, talking about it, but it's an easy thing to overlook because it's tough. It takes thought. We have to be focused on the other person, all those things, and that makes it difficult to do. Most people are not natural networkers. They have taught themselves how to be a good networker, and they're doing the things that I've been talking about for the last hour. That's how you get the inside track. So, thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you found this informative. If you have questions, comments, criticisms, please drop them into my social media. The links will be in the show notes after the show posts on YouTube. If you have something private, you can email me. My email address is also in the show notes. And always interested to hear your comments and especially your criticisms. So this is my last show for the week. So hopefully you got to tune in on Monday and Tuesday morning as well. So next week, starting on Monday at 10 a.m. is my show, Trust and Estates Weekly. Tuesday at 10 a.m. These are all Pacific time, by the way. Business Lessons from the Military. And then a week from today at 10 a.m. Wednesday is the next edition of People Making Money. So I thank you again very much for joining me. Wishing you a wonderful rest of the day and rest of the week. And signing off as I always do. Marie, darling, you are my belle. All the best, folks.